Okay. Put it on speaker view. There we go. Oh, Rachel, I'm going to let Rachel come in first. Sorry. You're just going to let Rachel join. And Natalia, I'm going to go ahead and mute you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute, okay?
No talking. No talking.
Hi, Rachel. Oh, you're muted, Rachel. I muted you accidentally. I'm sorry. Do you want to unmute to say hi?
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. We're going to go ahead and get started. So our 3 rules are to be safe, kind, and respectful, as you know. And the first thing is I'm going to go over the ingredient list. And then I'm going to go over our equipment list. So our ingredient list today, we need zucchini. We need eggs. Got some eggs here. My husband just brought me some more because I don't know if everyone heard, but I had a little accident this morning with the eggs. We need salt and pepper. Cubed ham. So I have some cubed ham here. An onion. And some shredded cheddar cheese, or your favorite kind of cheese that you would like to use. So for our equipment list, we need a microwave. We need a fork or a whisk. I'm going to use a fork, but if you want to use a whisk, that's something that you can use. A bowl. Our measuring cups or spoons. We want to have our measuring cups. You need a knife and a cutting board. And one thing, it says a plate, but if you're using a plate, you want to use a plate that is a deep dish plate. And if you don't have one of those, you can always use, I'm using this, it's called a casserole dish. It's small, so it can still fit in the microwave. We want it to be a little bit deeper. So you don't want a plate that's flat. You want it to have a little bit of a lip in there. So our first step is if you guys who has read the recipe online? Raise your hand if you've read the recipe. Okay, awesome. So you'll see that it has a serving size for 4. I don't want to cook that much, right? I want to break it down so my serving size will be smaller. So how we do that is it says for our zucchini, it calls for 4 cups. And what we want is 2 cups. So we're going to break this recipe in half so that way we don't have a lot of extra food left over. So our first step is going to get our zucchini, and we're going to finely chop this zucchini up. So we want to have a total of 2 cups of zucchini. So depending on how big your zucchinis are, you might only have to chop 1. But if you have small ones, you might have to chop 2. So that would be your first step. You want to get your knife. And if you see here, I already have my zucchini chopped up. I'll show you. Having a plate here, it's finely chopped. And so it's very important to take your time on chopping this up so you don't cut yourself, because I'm sure the knives that you're using are very sharp. Good job, Annie. Good job, Natalia. Michael, good job. Look at you go, Annie. So when you're cutting, after you cut your first zucchini, you can put it in your measuring cup and you can measure it so that way you know how much you need. So we're gonna use 2 cups of zucchini. Good job, guys. And then once you have your 2 cups, if you take your time, we're gonna put it in your casserole dish or your deep dish pie plate or your regular plate that has a deep lip to it. Just make sure it's microwavable safe. We have to be able to make sure that we can put it in the microwave. You guys are doing great. Do you have a question, Natalia?
Yeah. Is it okay if I use the stove top?
Yes, that's totally fine. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
So when you're done cutting your zucchini and you have 2 cups, so we want to have 2 cups of zucchini. Looks like Michael, you have 2 cups. Great job. Looks like Annie's doing that. So then you're going to put them right into the, oh, looks like Natalia's still working on her 2 cups. You're doing a great job, Natalia. Rachel, you're doing awesome. And Lily, I can't wait to hear how yours comes out when you're done. So you're going to put your 2 cups right into your dish. So, yep, perfect. Yep. Great. So the next step, looks like Natalia's almost done with that. Great job. Is we want to get an onion. So if you look at the recipe, it says 1 small onion. But remember, we're cutting this recipe in half. So we don't want a whole onion. We want a half an onion. So we are going to chop a half an onion. So the first step is to take your onion and cut it in half. And then 1/2 is going to be what we're chopping up. And if you look here, I already have my onion chopped up. Awesome, great job. So if you're using the stovetop, Natalia, you're going to put that in a pan on top of the stove, correct? Okay. So the next step is we're getting a half an onion and we're going to chop a half an onion. Oh, you already prepared for that, Natalia? Good job. Look at you go, Annie. You're doing a great job. Good job, Michael. And Rachel, it's hard for us to see you with the background, but I know you're doing a good job too. So once you have your half an onion diced and chopped up, we're going to add it right to our casserole dish. So the thing about this, you don't really have to measure it because we're just cutting a half an onion. So we're gonna put the whole half onion in there. I'm gonna mix them around to make sure my zucchini and onions well mixed. So the next step, if you're using a microwave, we want to cover this up with saran wrap, or if you have a lid that can go in the microwave and you can put on top of it. Some people, if you don't have that, you could always use a plate, right? You could put a plate on top of it and put it in the microwave. We're gonna put this in the microwave and we're gonna start for about 2.5 minutes. And what we wanna do is we want these to be tender. You don't want them to be overcooked. We want them to be tender. So I'm gonna go put this in the microwave for about 2.5 minutes, and then I'm gonna check it. And some people might be cooking on a stove, which you just do the same thing. You wanna cook them until they're tender and cook throughout. You're doing a great job, guys. Look at you go, Natalia. You're doing great. And that's one thing I want to remind everybody about. When we cut a recipe in half, we don't only cut the ingredients in half, we have to cut the cooking time in half too. But that's where it can be kind of tricky because you don't know exactly how long. So it's good to keep a close eye on your food that you're cooking in the microwave. I have about a minute left on mine. And make sure that when you take your dish out of the microwave, you're using an oven mitt or a towel, because the plate could be very hot. Good job. You're cubing up your ham. I'm gonna check my vegetables. So mine were not done. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add my 2 more minutes onto my zucchini and onion. Because I want to be able to, how I can tell if it's done or not, I'm gonna stick my fork in one, and your fork should go in nice and easy. Shouldn't have any resistance to it. And then once that's all cooked, we'll start working on our other mixture we're gonna make here.
I have a question.
Yes.
How much ham?
So we want a 1/2 cup of ham.
Okay.
Okay.
Half a cup is just this big.
So I have about a minute left on mine, and then I'm gonna check it. You might notice that when you check it, there's a lot of water in the pan and the dish. So what we're gonna have to do, if you have a lot of excess fluid, is we're gonna drain that fluid out, because we don't want that fluid in there. I'm starting to smell mine now. I can smell it in here. You're doing a great job. I have 20 seconds left and then I'm gonna go check it. I'm just taking mine out and I'm just gonna give it a stir around to see how it's doing here. And back. And I would say mine's done. I put mine in for a total of 4 minutes. You can see how my fork goes right in. They're nice and tender. The onions cook down. So I'll wait for everyone else to get to this part, the stage. If you're at the stage, give me a thumbs up. Okay. Natalia is. I'm gonna wait for Annie to get back to the camera and then we'll start doing our eggs. So we're just gonna put that aside because we're gonna end up putting it back in the microwave. If there's a lot of extra water in there, make sure we drain that water out. All right, so now everyone, Karen, is yours all set now, Karen? Awesome. So now we want to get our bowl and we want to take our eggs. So the recipe calls for 4 large eggs, but remember, we're cutting this recipe in half. So we're going to use 2 large eggs. And what we're going to do is we're going to crack them into our bowl. You want 2 large eggs, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in my bowl here. Okay. What I'm going to do is take my fork and I'm going to break my yolk up. If you have a whisk, you could use a whisk. I'm using a fork just to kind of mix this together. So I have my eggs nice and mixed up, my yolk's broken. I then want to take my measuring cup and I want a 1/2 cup of my cubed ham. So I'm going to take a 1/2 cup and I'm going to measure out my cubed ham. There we go. Oh, you're muted, Natalia. Do you have something to say? You're muted.
It asks for 2 eggs, right?
Yep, we're gonna do 2 eggs because we're cutting this recipe in half. So now you have your 1/2 cup of cubed ham. You're gonna put it right in your egg mixture. Just like so. And after that, we also want to add a 1/2 cup of shredded cheese, sharp shredded cheese, or your favorite kind. So I'm adding a 1/2 cup, measuring it out here. I'm gonna put that right into my egg mixture too. Now, I would say a dash of salt. You don't need too much salt because we'll do that at the end. And a dash of pepper, or how much pepper you like for your taste. Some people like a lot of pepper, some people like a little. And pepper, unlike salt, you can use a lot of pepper, but it's not ever good to use a lot of salt in your food. So we're gonna go ahead and just mix this together. Mixing my egg up with my ham and my cheese. So once you get it all mixed in, now we're gonna go back to your casserole dish here. And we're gonna carefully pour our cheese and ham and egg into the dish over the zucchini and onion. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix this in a little bit. And now, once you get all that done, Natalia's is going to be a little different because she's using a stove top, but we're going to put this in the back in the microwave. And what we're going to do is we're going to start it for, I would say, let's start for 4.5 minutes and then we'll check it. So I'm going to put this in the microwave for 4.5 minutes. Now I'm back. And how we're going to tell if this is done is we're going to be able to insert a butter knife, or if you have a toothpick or fork, and it should come out dry, just like baking a cake. When you're baking a cake, when you check it, you put a knife in there, and if it comes out and there's no batter on it, it means it's done. Ours is going to be the same way. You guys are all doing such a great job. So I have about 2 minutes left of mine, and then I'll check to see how it's looking. So how you'll know if yours is done is when it's all the way cooked through and you put a fork in there and you pull it out and there's nothing on your fork. Because I told you, this is the tricky part when we're cutting a recipe in half, is that you never really know the exact time it should cook. I have about a minute and a half. How's it smelling? Give me a thumbs up if you can smell it and it smells good. Awesome. Rachel, you can smell yours. I have 1 minute. It's looking delicious. So in the meantime, I have about 30 seconds and I'm gonna go check it. But what I can do is clean up my station a little bit while I'm waiting. Condense everything so that way at the end, there's not a lot of things to do. Okay, I'm gonna check mine. So I'm going to show you, mine needs a little bit more time. If you can see, there's still some runny yolk in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back in for about 2.5 minutes. So if you have to increase your time, I would actually say 2 minutes. Let's do 2 minutes. And that's the thing about microwaves. Everyone's microwave cooks a little differently as well. You guys are all doing such a great job. I have about 1 minute and 15 seconds and then I'll check mine. I'm sure it's going to be close to being done. "45 seconds. And so how we check it, we're just going to put a fork in the middle. And if it comes out nice and dry and there's no runny yolk, then it's all finished. I'm going to go check mine. Looks like all of you guys are checking yours too. Looks like Karen Michaels is done. Woo, look at that. That looks yummy. Mine's all finished. Show you mine down here. See, there's no runny yolk. All my cheese is melted. So this is a zucchini ham frittata. So it looks like Michael's is done. Natalia, is yours done?
Mine's in the boiler.
In the broiler, okay. Annie, give me a thumbs up if yours is done, Annie. Lily's is cooking, she's cooking hers, awesome. Rachel, what about you? Is yours done? Can you give me a thumbs up if it's done? Looks like Rachel's is done. Ooh, look at that, Annie. You're doing a great job, Lily. So what
Now
I'm doing,
mine is done.
it's done now. I'm letting mine cool for a minute. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna take your salt shaker and you're just gonna put a little bit of salt on top. Just kind of sprinkle over. And this is just to taste. So if you don't like salt, you don't have to add salt. Ooh, look at that, Natalia. That looks yummy. Look at that, Annie. Woo! That is good. And I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of pepper because I love pepper. So everyone's showing theirs, so I'll show mine too.
Perfect.
Wow, these came out really great.
Yeah.
They look delicious. I can't wait to try it. I'm gonna grab myself a fork. So now do you see why I broke down the recipe? If we were to use the full recipe, ours would be double as big, which would be great if you're cooking for friends or family, but for only a small serving for me, I didn't need that much. So who's ready to give it a try? Who's going to be the first one? Looks like Michael and Karen have their plates ready. Ooh, look at that, Lily. That looks yummy. So Lily made a rhubarb sauce today. And it looks really good. Look at Rachel's. The cooking, I see you doing some, is Rachel's all done? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. All right, you guys can feel free to unmute now since the cooking clap part is over and now we get to try it together.